The vastness of space stretched out in all directions, a never-ending expanse filled with distant stars and galaxies. Yet for all the beauty and mystery, the human race had always been the subject of ridicule in the eyes of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. Across countless alien empires, humanity was seen as weak, primitive, and unworthy of any serious attention. Their technology, their weapons, and their very existence were dismissed as laughable. The humans, with their small blue planet and their fragile bodies, were far beneath the advanced alien species who had mastered interstellar travel, artificial intelligence, and energy manipulation. To these aliens, Earth was just another backwater planet, its inhabitants barely able to protect themselves. The idea that humans could ever pose a threat was so ridiculous that it became a running joke. Alien councils and empires alike mocked Earth's military efforts, sneering at the puny defense systems humans had developed. The notion that Earth's fleet could ever match the immense power of alien warships was laughable. No matter how advanced the technology on Earth was, it was never enough to impress the alien powers that ruled the galaxy. In their eyes, humans were not even worth considering as a threat. But what these aliens didn't know was that Earth had something they had never imagined. Something so advanced, so secretive, that the entire galaxy would tremble once they found out about it. In the depths of Earth's most secretive military base, one of the most extraordinary ships ever created lay in wait. The Shadow Blade, a stealth ship built with technology so advanced it could render itself invisible to any known detection systems, was humanity's last hope. And Captain Leo, the officer in command of this cutting-edge vessel, was ready to prove to the galaxy just how wrong the aliens were. Captain Leo was a man who had seen the worst of humanity's struggles. As a young officer, he had been part of the early defense against the alien fleets that had first come to Earth, intent on testing their strength. They had underestimated humanity then, and they would do so again. But Leo wasn't like the others who had been content to sit back and accept the ridicule. He knew humanity had a fire burning deep inside, a fire that no alien empire could put out. He had been given command of the Shadow Blade, a ship that could finally level the playing field. And now, it was time for him to show the galaxy that humans were far more than just a joke. The Shadow Blade wasn't just another ship, it was a marvel of engineering. It had been developed in secret, hidden away from the prying eyes of alien spies. The ship's cloaking technology was so sophisticated that it could disappear entirely from enemy sensors, making it virtually impossible to detect. This made the Shadow Blade the perfect weapon for the human race's final push, to prove they were more than just an afterthought. But despite the ship's power, there was one thing Leo couldn't shake off: doubt. The alien forces were far superior in numbers and technology. Could humans really stand a chance against them? Leo had seen the devastating power of the alien ships firsthand. He had lost friends, colleagues, and mentors in previous skirmishes, and it had been the death of one man in particular that had driven him to the brink of obsession. Bonner had been Leo's mentor and friend. A veteran officer who had seen it all, Bonner had always been the voice of reason. He had taught Leo everything he knew about warfare, strategy, and leadership. But in the last battle, Bonner had been killed in a surprise attack by the alien fleet. The pain of losing him still haunted Leo, and the image of Bonner's lifeless body was burned into his mind. It wasn't just the loss of his mentor that hurt. It was the fact that Bonner had died while defending a planet that had been laughed at by the rest of the galaxy. Humanity had lost a brave soul, and Leo had vowed to make those responsible pay. Now, as he stood on the bridge of the Shadow Blade, Leo could feel that familiar fire reignite within him. The time for revenge had come. The time to prove humanity's worth was now. The aliens had mocked Earth for far too long, but they were about to learn that humans were no longer a joke. Leo's fingers hovered over the controls as he looked out at the endless void of space. A message had just come in from Earth's command. The Galactic Council was sending a fleet of their most powerful warships to Earth's solar system. They were coming to challenge humanity, to show them once and for all that they were not fit to exist alongside the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. The aliens thought they could intimidate humanity into submission. They thought they could send their fleet and crush Earth in an instant. What they didn't realize was that the Shadow Blade was already on its way. Earth's last line of defense wasn't a fleet of ships. It was a single vessel, silent and deadly, waiting for the right moment to strike. But Leo knew that the success of this mission would come at a high cost. The Shadow Blade was humanity's best hope, but it was also their last. If the ship failed, there would be no backup, no second chances. Earth would fall, and humanity would be wiped out like so many other civilizations before them. There was no room for error. Leo had to make this count. As the fleet of alien ships drew closer, Leo stood tall in the captain's chair, his eyes fixed on the empty void ahead. He could feel the weight of the mission pressing down on him, but there was no turning back. The Shadow Blade was ready, and Leo's crew was prepared. This was humanity's moment to prove that they were more than just a weak, primitive species. The first salvo of shots from the alien fleet came through just as Leo had predicted, aimed at Earth's defenses. But Leo wasn't concerned with the immediate threat. He knew the aliens had no idea what they were truly up against. The Shadow Blade would remain hidden, invisible to their sensors, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. And when it did, there would be no escape for the alien forces. Leo's mind raced as he thought about Bonner. The pain of losing him still cut deep, but it also fueled his resolve. This was for Bonner, and for every human who had been underestimated by the galaxy. The time for redemption was now, and Leo would make sure that the aliens would never laugh at humanity again. The Shadow Blade silently moved into position, cloaked from all view, as the alien ships continued to advance, unaware of the fate that awaited them. The stage was set, and soon, the galaxy would know that humans were not to be underestimated. As the Shadow Blade hovered just outside the enemy fleet, Leo took one last breath. The next few moments would define humanity's future, and he would not let them down. The Shadow Blade lay motionless in the depths of Earth's secret military base, cloaked in the vastness of space. Captain Leo stood in the control room, staring out into the endless void, his mind racing with thoughts of the mission ahead. The alien fleet was only hours away, and everything had to go perfectly. There was no room for failure. If they were discovered, it would be the end of Earth's last hope. The crew was ready, each member assigned to their roles with precision. They were a team that had trained for this moment, prepared for every possible outcome, even though they knew that the odds were stacked against them. The alien forces were relentless, technologically advanced, and they thought nothing of Earth's feeble attempts to resist. But the Shadow Blade was their trump card. The ship was not just a marvel of human engineering. It was Earth's last chance at survival. Leo's hands hovered over the console in front of him, his fingers tracing the outline of the controls. He could feel the weight of the mission pressing on him. This wasn't just about proving Earth's strength. It was about showing the galaxy that humanity had a will to survive, a will that could not be easily broken. The Shadow Blade was a stealth ship, built with cloaking technology that made it virtually invisible to the most advanced detection systems in the galaxy. No matter how powerful the alien radars were, they would not see the Shadow Blade coming. The cloaking technology was humanity's greatest achievement in the field of stealth. It wasn't just a simple camouflage. It was a bending of light itself. The ship's outer hull was coated in a special material that refracted light in such a way that the ship became almost completely undetectable. The aliens' most sophisticated sensors couldn't lock onto it, couldn't detect it. To them, the Shadow Blade didn't even exist. It was a ghost in the vastness of space, and that's how Leo intended to keep it. "We're ready, Captain." The voice of Lieutenant Harris crackled over the intercom. Harris was the ship's tech officer, a genius when it came to advanced systems. He was the one responsible for making sure that the cloaking device remained active and the ship stayed off the alien radar. Leo nodded, though no one could see him. "Activate the cloaking device," he ordered. "Aye, Captain." cloaking engaged. The room dimmed as the cloaking technology hummed to life. It wasn't an instantaneous process. The ship's systems had to work in perfect harmony to ensure that no energy signatures leaked through, that no stray light could escape. For the crew, it was a strange feeling. They knew the ship was hidden, but there was still the unsettling sensation of being adrift in an invisible vessel. No radar, no sensors, no tracking devices. They were truly unseen. As the shadow blade began to move, Leo gave a small, silent sigh of relief. The ship was working perfectly. It was time to leave Earth's atmosphere and enter the unknown. The ship's eye-powered navigational system kicked in, guiding the vessel through the complex paths of space. The eye was one of humanity's greatest creations, a system capable of analyzing vast amounts of data in seconds and making calculations far beyond what any human could. It was able to detect gravitational anomalies, predict enemy fleet movements, and calculate the safest and most efficient path through hostile space. The eye was more than just a tool. It was a co-pilot, a silent partner in the mission. Leo watched as the holographic display flickered to life before him, showing the outline of their destination, the heart of the alien fleet. It was a dangerous journey, one filled with countless risks. The Shadow Blade had to weave through asteroid fields, evade patrols, and avoid detection by the alien fleet's advanced surveillance systems. Every movement had to be calculated with precision. One mistake, and they would be exposed. Leo's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the map, studying the best path to take. His mind raced as he thought through the possible scenarios. There was no room for error. If they were detected before they reached the enemy fleet, the consequences would be catastrophic. They would be outnumbered, outgunned, and completely vulnerable. How long until we reach the fleet's outer perimeter? Leo asked, his voice steady despite the tension rising in his chest. 20 minutes, Captain, Harris replied. We'll be in position by then, ready to strike. Leo's jaw tightened. 20 minutes. That was all they had. The alien fleet was vast, and it was closing in on Earth's solar system. If they didn't act now, they would never get another chance. The silence in the control room was palpable as the crew prepared for what was to come. Every member of the team knew the stakes. If they succeeded, it would change the fate of humanity forever. But if they failed, Earth would fall, and the galaxy would never forget the final futile struggle of a dying species. Leo glanced at the crew members around him. They were all focused, their faces a mixture of determination and fear. They had trained for this mission for months, but now that it was here, the reality of the situation was sinking in. The Shadow Blade was Earth's last hope, and if it was discovered before they could strike, there would be no coming back. Stay sharp, everyone, Leo said, his voice calm but filled with urgency. We move as one. No mistakes. The crew nodded in unison, their focus unwavering. The time for fear had passed. They had a mission to complete, and nothing would stand in their way. As the ship moved deeper into enemy territory, the tension in the control room grew. Leo could feel the weight of every second that passed. The alien fleet was getting closer, and every moment that they remained undetected was a small victory. But they were running out of time. The Shadow Blade moved like a shadow itself, slipping past asteroid fields, weaving through the darkness of space. The cloaking technology kept them hidden, but Leo knew that the longer they stayed in enemy territory, the more likely it was that something would go wrong. Even the most advanced cloaking technology could fail if it was pushed too far. One wrong calculation, one misstep, and the Shadow Blade would be exposed. Leo's thoughts drifted back to Bonner, the mentor he had lost in the early battles with the alien forces. Bonner had believed in humanity's strength, even when the odds were stacked against them. Leo had promised himself that he would make sure Bonner's death wasn't in vain. This mission, this battle, was for him. For all of them. They were fighting not just for Earth, but for every man, woman, and child who had ever been ridiculed by the galaxy. It was time to show the aliens that they had underestimated humanity. Captain, Harris's voice broke through Leo's thoughts. "We're approaching the outer perimeter of the alien fleet. All systems are functioning within normal parameters." Leo nodded. "Take us in, and stay alert. This is where the real challenge begins." As the shadow blade closed in on the alien fleet, Leo's heart pounded in his chest. They were about to enter the belly of the beast. They would be in the heart of enemy territory, surrounded by ships far larger and more powerful than their own. It was a gamble, but it was one they had no choice but to take. With a final deep breath, Leo turned to his crew, his voice filled with resolve. "Let's show them what humanity is made of." And with that, the shadow blade continued its silent journey into the unknown, ready to strike when the time was right. The moment of truth had finally arrived. The shadow blade had drifted deep into the heart of the alien fleet, its cloaking device deactivated, revealing the ship in all its terrifying glory. For a brief moment, everything seemed to freeze. The vastness of space, the giant alien ships, and the humans aboard the stealth vessel. The eerie stillness was only broken by the hum of the ship's systems coming to life, ready to unleash humanity's fury. The alien fleet, which had spent years mocking Earth's technology, now found themselves face to face with something they had never expected. A ship so advanced, so deadly, that it defied everything they knew. The shadow blade was no longer a ghost in the void. It was now a force of destruction, and the aliens were about to witness just how powerful humanity could be. The alien ships seemed to hesitate for a moment, confusion rippling through their ranks. Their sensors had picked up nothing until now. The stealth ship's sudden appearance in their midst was enough to stun them, but this pause in action was all that the humans needed. Leo stood at the helm, his heart racing, but his mind focused and sharp. They had one shot at this. If they hesitated now, they would lose the advantage. "Fire at will," Leo commanded, his voice steady, yet filled with urgency. And just like that, the battle began. The Shadow Blade's eye-powered weapon systems locked onto the nearest alien ships, targeting their weak spots with brutal precision. The ship's first strike was a series of electromagnetic pulses, so powerful that they rendered the alien vessel's systems useless in an instant. The ship's shields flickered and died, their weapons turned useless, their navigation systems offline. The once mighty alien fleet was now completely vulnerable. It was a moment of pure chaos. Then the laser cannons fired. Bright beams of energy shot out from the Shadow Blade, cutting through the vacuum of space with deadly accuracy. The first alien ship exploded in a flash of light, its hull torn apart by the laser blasts. A second ship, attempting to retaliate, unleashed a volley of energy blasts at the Shadow Blade, but the human ship was far too fast. The cloaking technology might have been deactivated, but the Shadow Blade's speed and agility more than made up for it. It darted out of the way, leaving the aliens' retaliatory shots to fall harmlessly into empty space. Explosions rang out across the void, the sound of battle reverberating in the empty space like a thunderous roar. The Shadow Blade was a blur of destruction, its weapons carving through the alien fleet with a precision and speed the aliens had never anticipated. Alien ships, once proud and unassailable, were torn apart by the advanced human technology. The battle was a spectacle, a symphony of destruction set against the backdrop of space. The stars that had once seemed so peaceful now flickered like dying embers, the bright, violent flashes of explosions lighting up the black void. As laser fire streaked across the sky, the alien ships started to realize the enormity of their mistake. They had underestimated humanity's power, and now they were paying the price. A massive alien cruiser attempted to regroup, launching a counteroffensive, but the Shadow Blade had already anticipated its move. With a single, well-timed shot, the human ship took down the cruiser's engines, sending it spiraling uncontrollably through space. The alien ship collided with another, their combined explosions filling the space with a blinding flash. It was a beautiful sight, but a deadly one for the aliens. Humanity's response had been swift, precise, and overwhelming. For a moment, Leo allowed himself to take in the sight of their victory, the destruction of the enemy fleet all around him. His heart pounded in his chest, but there was no time to savor the success. The fight wasn't over. The remaining alien ships were still a threat, and they wouldn't go down without a fight. "Continue the assault," Leo barked. "We can't stop now. Keep up the pressure." The crew continued to fire with unrelenting force, their attacks now focused on the remaining alien vessels. One by one, the enemy ships fell, their hulls crumpling under the onslaught of laser fire and electromagnetic pulses. The aliens, who had once believed themselves to be the rulers of the galaxy, were now scattered and broken, their technology unable to cope with the superior human ingenuity. The Shadow Blade was a force of nature, its sleek, dark form cutting through the chaos of battle like a predator hunting its prey. It was a symbol of humanity's resilience, a testament to the creativity and resourcefulness that had kept Earth alive in the face of overwhelming odds. The alien fleet that had once mocked Earth was now in ruins, their ships burning in the cold expanse of space. The destruction was immense. An alien destroyer was ripped apart by a well-placed shot, its debris scattering across the void. Another ship tried to flee, but it was no match for the Shadow Blade's speed. The human ship chased it down, firing relentlessly until the enemy vessel was nothing more than a smoldering wreck, drifting aimlessly through space. As the battle raged on, the crew worked like a well-oiled machine, each member knowing exactly what to do. Harris continued to guide the ship through the debris, avoiding collisions with the wreckage of alien ships, while ensuring that the cloaking device remained ready to go back online if needed. The precision with which the crew executed their orders was something to behold, a demonstration of humanity's determination to fight back. But despite their success, Leo knew that this victory wasn't the end of the war. It was just the beginning. The alien fleet that had been mocking humanity was shattered, but there were more to come. There were always more. "Status report," Leo said, his voice calm despite the intensity of the situation. "We've destroyed almost half of their fleet, Captain," Harris replied. "But there's more on the way. We need to finish this quickly." Leo nodded grimly. "Then we'll make sure they regret ever underestimating us." The Shadow Blade continued its relentless assault, its lasers lighting up the blackness of space as it tore through the remaining alien ships. The battle was far from over, but humanity had just made its first, most decisive statement. The galaxy was about to realize that Earth wasn't as weak as they had believed. The tide of the war had begun to shift, and humanity's unexpected power was leaving a mark on the galaxy. With each shot, with each strike, Leo's resolve only grew stronger. This was their moment. This was humanity's time to show the universe that Earth wasn't just a backwater planet. It was a force to be reckoned with. The shock that rippled through the alien fleets was palpable. What had started as a routine battle, one they had expected to win with ease, had now turned into an unthinkable nightmare. They had underestimated humanity, laughed at the idea of Earth being able to stand up against their mighty forces, and now they were fighting for their very survival. The Shadow Blade had come out of nowhere, delivering blows the aliens weren't prepared for, and their once pristine battle strategy was crumbling under the weight of the unexpected assault. Alien ships tried to regroup, but every time they attempted to launch a counteroffensive, the humans were already one step ahead. Their advanced cloaking technology made it almost impossible for the alien ships to predict their movements, and each time the Shadow Blade struck, it was like a hammer coming down on a house of cards. "Reinforcements are on their way, Captain," Harris reported, his voice tight with the pressure. "But they're still too far out to be any real help." Leo nodded, his eyes scanning the chaotic battle unfolding around him. The Shadow Blade was a sleek, deadly weapon, but even with its advanced technology, there were limits. They were outnumbered, and more enemies were on the way. But as the battle raged, Leo's resolve only grew stronger. Humanity had already proven its worth, and he wouldn't let his crew down now. The alien ships were in disarray. The once formidable fleet, which had appeared invincible just hours ago, was now falling apart. Their navigation systems were malfunctioning from the electromagnetic pulses, and their weapons were useless against the human ship's superior technology. The aliens' panic was palpable as they scrambled to regroup and launch a counterattack. But each time they tried, the shadow blade struck with surgical precision, picking off one enemy vessel after another. As the chaos unfolded in the stars, Leo could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. His crew was holding it together, but it wasn't easy. The adrenaline of battle fueled their movements, but there were moments when the toll of the fight became clear. Leo could see it in their eyes. The strain, the exhaustion, the fear. These were men and women who had never expected to be in a battle like this, let alone one against an enemy so technologically superior. Among the crew, Bonner's death was still fresh in Leo's mind. The old man had been more than just a mentor. He had been a father figure to him, teaching him everything he knew about leadership, about what it meant to fight for something bigger than yourself. But Bonner was gone, and Leo was the one left to carry on his legacy. The grief was something he pushed to the back of his mind, but it was always there, lurking, threatening to break through. Bonner wouldn't want us to stop now, Leo muttered to himself, his grip tightening on the controls. The thought of his mentor's death fueled his determination, but it also reminded him of the cost of this fight. As the battle raged on, Leo couldn't help but feel a growing fear, the fear that he might lose more people. He wasn't sure how much more the crew could take. Harris turned to him, his face pale but determined. "We're going to finish this, Captain. We can't let them win. We can't let Bonner's death be for nothing." Leo gave a nod, his jaw set. "I know, and we won't." The human crew's resolve was unwavering, but the emotional toll of the fight was starting to show. As the battle wore on, they found themselves facing not only the physical challenges of the war, but the psychological strain of the constant pressure. The fear of losing more comrades, of facing the same fate as Bonner, hung heavy in the air. Every time a ship exploded, every time the shadow blade took a hit, the crew braced themselves, hoping it wasn't their last. Despite the mounting tension, they pressed on, each victory pushing them forward. The shadow blade struck again, another alien vessel caught in its crosshairs. The crew cheered as the alien ship erupted in a brilliant flash of light, but the moment of triumph was short-lived. There was no time to celebrate. The battle was far from over. The reinforcements that the aliens had sent in were now closing in, and the crew knew that they couldn't afford to let up. Leo knew that if they didn't act quickly, they would be overrun. But despite being outnumbered, the shadow blade remained a force to be reckoned with. Each maneuver, each strike, showed the world that humans were capable of more than the aliens had ever imagined. The shadow blade had become the symbol of humanity's resilience. No longer the underdog, Earth had proven that it was a force to be reckoned with. But for Leo, it wasn't just about winning. It was about honoring those who had already given their lives. Bonner's death wasn't in vain. This was humanity's fight, and Leo would make sure they finished it. The aliens were starting to realize just how dangerous humanity was. The panic among their ranks was growing as the shadow blade continued its assault. They had underestimated the humans, and now their fleet was in disarray. Alien ships scattered, trying to regroup, but they couldn't outmaneuver the shadow blade's superior tactics. The fear that had once plagued humanity was now on the other side of the battlefield. But the humans weren't out of danger yet. The aliens may have been panicked, but they weren't done fighting. More ships were coming, and the shadow blade was running low on ammo. The crew had to push through just a little longer, hold out until the reinforcements arrived. They had to be ready for the final push. Leo knew that if they could hold on, they could win this. But in the back of his mind, he feared that they might not make it. The tension was rising, but so was humanity's courage. Leo could feel the weight of his crew's determination, their unwavering belief that they could win this. They were scared, yes, but they were also filled with a burning desire to prove themselves. Earth wasn't just a defenseless planet. It was a warrior in its own right, and they would fight until the last breath to show the universe that humanity wasn't to be underestimated. As the alien ships regrouped, the Shadow Blade slid into position, ready to strike again. The battle was far from over, but Leo was more certain than ever that humanity had a fighting chance. They had come this far, and they would push until the very end, no matter the cost. The sound of distant explosions echoed through the cold, dark reaches of space. The Shadow Blade was still flying strong, having fought off wave after wave of the alien fleet, but the crew knew the end of the battle was near. They had won countless skirmishes. They had fought back an enemy who had once thought them insignificant, but now an even greater threat loomed. Just when victory seemed within reach, the aliens revealed their trump card. A massive dreadnought emerged from the heart of their fleet, its dark, menacing form dwarfing the other ships around it. This was no ordinary warship. It was the most advanced vessel humanity had ever encountered, equipped with cutting-edge AI weapons and shields that seemed nearly indestructible. The very presence of the dreadnought sent a chill through the crew of the Shadow Blade. This was the ultimate test, the final challenge in their battle for survival. Leo's eyes narrowed as he took in the sight of the colossal dreadnought. It was a massive, imposing structure, bristling with weapons and energy shields that shimmered menacingly. The alien fleet had clearly been hiding this secret weapon, and now that it was unleashed, it seemed almost impossible to defeat. This was a ship designed to crush entire fleets with ease, a weapon that could wipe out humanity's forces in a matter of moments. The odds were stacked higher than ever, and for a moment, the crew of the Shadow Blade was unsure of their chances. "We can't back down now," Leo said, his voice steady despite the fear that gripped him. "This is it. We either finish this fight, or we die trying." The crew looked at him, fear and determination flashing in their eyes. They had been through so much already, losing comrades, struggling against an enemy far superior in both numbers and technology, and yet here they were, standing on the edge of victory. But this dreadnought, it was unlike anything they had ever faced before. With its massive guns, the dreadnought opened fire. A barrage of energy blasts flew toward the Shadow Blade, lighting up the void of space with explosive energy. The human crew scrambled to avoid the blasts, weaving in and out of the laser fire as the ship rocked with each near miss. The sheer power of the dreadnought's weapons made it seem as though the Shadow Blade wouldn't stand a chance. Yet, Leo wasn't about to give up. Not when they had come so far. "Get us in close," Leo barked, his voice filled with urgency. "We need to strike at its core, hit it where it hurts. If we can't take it down, we won't make it out of here." The Shadow Blade darted through space, its sleek design allowing it to avoid most of the blasts. But the dreadnought wasn't going down without a fight. As the Shadow Blade made its way closer, the dreadnought's massive guns fired again, this time more accurately. The ship shook violently as a blast hit the shields, causing them to flicker dangerously. "Shields are holding," Harris shouted, but the strain on the ship was clear. The crew was pushing themselves to the limit, and Leo knew that they couldn't keep this up forever. "We can't outrun it forever," Leo said, gritting his teeth. "We need to get in closer and disable its weapons. Full speed ahead, Harris." With that, the Shadow Blade plunged directly toward the dreadnought, its engines roaring to life as the crew braced for the impact of battle. The ship zigged and zagged through the alien fire, moving in a calculated, unpredictable pattern to avoid the laser blasts. It was a dangerous game, and every second counted. As they neared the dreadnought, Leo's eyes scanned the data streaming across the ship's interface. His fingers flew over the controls as he searched for weaknesses. The dreadnought's eye-controlled weapons systems were formidable, but there was a flaw. Its weapons could only track a certain range of movement. If they could get close enough, they might be able to exploit that weakness. "Prepare the EMP," Leo ordered, his mind already working through the strategy. "We're going to disable its shields, then hit it with everything we've got." The crew quickly set to work, preparing the electromagnetic pulse that would disable the dreadnought's shields temporarily. They knew that if they missed this window of opportunity, they would never get another chance. The dreadnought fired again, but this time, the shadow blade was closer than it had ever been. It was a split-second decision. Get in close, disable the shields, and take out the dreadnought before it could retaliate. Leo's heart pounded as the shadow blade neared its target. The dreadnought's guns fired once more, but at this distance, they couldn't avoid it. Leo's hands gripped the controls tightly, his knuckles white. The ship rocked as they were hit, but it wasn't enough to stop them. The EMP was ready. EMP launched. Harris shouted, his voice filled with hope. The pulse sent out through space, crashing into the dreadnought's shields like a tidal wave. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The dreadnought's shields flickered, weakened by the EMP, and Leo saw his opportunity. Without hesitation, he ordered the crew to fire everything they had. The Shadow Blade's weapons opened up, unleashing a barrage of laser fire and missiles, each one aimed at the dreadnought's exposed core. The ship shuddered with each hit, but Leo didn't flinch. They had one shot, and they had to make it count. Explosions ripped through the dreadnought's massive frame, fire and debris spraying into space. The sound of the weapon's fire was deafening. Though there was no sound in the vacuum of space, it was a battle of lights and shadows, a dance of destruction that left no room for error. The dreadnought shuddered as its core was hit, its hull buckling under the force of the attack. The final explosion that rocked the dreadnought was like a shockwave that rippled through space. The core detonated with a massive blinding flash, sending pieces of the ship flying in all directions. The Shadow Blade was thrown back by the shockwave, but its crew held on, bracing themselves as the dust of battle settled. And then, silence. For a moment, it felt as if time had stopped. The massive dreadnought, the greatest weapon in the alien fleet, was no more. The once invincible alien forces were now in complete disarray. The crew of the Shadow Blade had done the impossible. They had faced down the most advanced warship in the galaxy and come out victorious. Leo let out a breath he didn't know he had been holding, his body shaking from the intensity of the battle. But despite the exhaustion, there was a sense of pride, a sense of accomplishment that washed over him. They had done it. Against all odds, humanity had won. The crew cheered, their voices filled with a mix of relief, joy, and disbelief. They had faced the ultimate test and had come out on top. And as the wreckage of the dreadnought drifted away into the vastness of space, Leo knew one thing for certain. Humanity had proven itself to the galaxy. They were no longer the underdogs. They had taken on the most advanced civilizations in the universe and shown them what humanity was capable of. And the aliens would never forget it. The silence of space was deafening after the destruction of the dreadnought. For a brief moment, everything seemed to stand still, like the universe itself was taking a deep breath. The once thriving alien fleet, which had been so sure of its superiority, was now in retreat. Their most powerful weapon was gone, and with it, the hopes of conquering humanity. The remaining alien ships, unable to fight without the dreadnought's support, began to turn tail and flee. The Shadow Blade hovered in space, its sleek frame bathed in the soft glow of distant stars. The crew, though battered and exhausted, watched the last of the enemy ships retreat into the darkness of space, vanishing into the depths of the galaxy. There was no more resistance, no more threats. The battle was won. Yet, as Leo stood at the helm, gazing out at the receding alien fleet, there was no overwhelming sense of joy or triumph. Instead, there was a deep, aching sense of bittersweetness. They had won, yes, but at a great cost. The faces of the fallen crew members, especially Bonner's, filled his mind. The victory felt hollow without them, without the comrades who had given everything in the fight to protect humanity's future. Bonner's sacrifice had been one of the pivotal moments of the battle. His bravery, his willingness to give up his life to ensure the safety of his team, was something that Leo would never forget. It was a reminder of the harsh realities of war, of how fleeting life could be in the heat of battle. The crew had done the impossible, but not without paying the price. As Leo stared into the void, a sense of pride began to settle over him. They had shown the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. They had proven that despite being outnumbered, despite facing technology far beyond their own, they had the courage, the ingenuity, and the heart to fight and win. The alien empires, who once laughed at humanity, now knew better. Humanity had made its mark on the galaxy, and that mark would be remembered for generations to come. Leo's thoughts drifted to Bonner once more. The sacrifice of a single life had altered the course of the battle. The team had pulled together in the face of unimaginable odds, and together they had accomplished the impossible. It wasn't just the destruction of the dreadnought that had won them the day. It was the bond they shared, the courage to stand side by side in the face of certain death. Bonner had given his life for that bond, and Leo vowed to carry it with him always. As the shadow blade turned toward Earth, the weight of the battle and the victory began to settle on the crew. The ship's engines hummed quietly, the rhythmic sound of the journey back home. The crew had won, but their journey was far from over. They had proven themselves, but the war was not yet won. There would be more battles, more challenges to face. But one thing was certain: humanity had earned its place in the galaxy. The shadow blade slowly made its way back to Earth, the planet coming into view like a shining blue gem in the vastness of space. It was a sight that Leo had seen countless times before, but now it felt different. Earth was no longer a vulnerable, insignificant world in the eyes of the galaxy. It was home to a species that had risen up, that had fought back, and defeated an enemy that was once thought to be unbeatable. Humanity had proven its strength, and the galaxy would never forget it. As the ship descended toward the atmosphere, Leo stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on Earth below. He could see the lights of cities twinkling in the distance, the bustle of life continuing on the surface. The battle they had fought was just the beginning of something much larger. Humanity was no longer the underdog. They had earned their place among the stars. The crew's cheers filled the ship, but Leo's thoughts were elsewhere. He had been a part of something extraordinary, but he knew that the true victory was not just in the battle they had won. It was in the lessons they had learned, the strength they had discovered within themselves. Humanity had proven that it could stand toe-to-toe with the greatest threats the galaxy had to offer, and that was a message that would resonate throughout the stars. As the shadow blade touched down on Earth, Leo felt a sense of accomplishment and reflection. He had led his crew through the darkest of times, and they had come out victorious. But he knew that the fight wasn't over. There would always be new challenges, new dangers, and new enemies to face. But now, humanity had a chance to shape its own future. The once mocked humans had proven their strength, their courage, and their resilience. They had shown the galaxy that they would not bow down to anyone, that they would not be intimidated by superior technology or overwhelming odds. They had fought against the might of the alien empires and had emerged victorious. The message was clear: humanity would no longer be underestimated. As the crew disembarked from the ship, Leo looked around at the familiar faces of his comrades. They were weary, but their eyes shone with the pride of victory. They had done it. They had fought and won, and they had done it together. It was a victory that would be remembered for generations. The battle against AI supremacy had been won, but it was only the beginning. The galaxy had seen what humanity was capable of, and the future now seemed full of endless possibilities. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, humanity stood on equal footing with the most powerful forces in the galaxy. Leo took one last look at the shadow blade, his thoughts drifting back to the journey they had just completed. It had been a long, hard battle, but they had emerged victorious. The shadows that had once hung over humanity's future had been lifted. There was no turning back now. The story of humanity's victory against the alien empires would spread across the galaxy, carried on the winds of history. It would be a reminder to all that humanity was not a species to be underestimated. They had fought for their place in the stars, and they had won. And with that, Leo smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning. There was so much more ahead for humanity, and they were ready to face whatever challenges came next.